Thank you for all joining me tonight. Today we're going to be talking about the brain itself and how the differences are between the musician's brain and the non-musician's brain. Today we'll be talking about what the science is behind the brain, how they are different, and how the musician's brain functions. So the science behind the brain is fairly a new topic. Neuroscientists have asked people to come in of different varieties, musicians, non-musicians, and music lovers. They use instruments called fMRI, functional magnetic reasoning imaging, which basically will monitor specific neuro waves and magnetic waves going between the brain when the subject is asked to process music or do a simple task. They also use PET scanners, which is positioning emissions tomography, which positions exactly where the brain is actually active in that time. So what they would do is they would ask people to come in and they would be asked some simple tasks such as reading, simple math questions like what's 2 plus 2 or 2 times 4. Listening to music, and of course the final test was musicians to play music to monitor the difference between the two. So what really goes on when the difference between a musician's brain is the fact that when they play the music, they look super calm on the outside and focused on what they're doing, but inside the brain, it's like a chaotic fest of dancing between neuro waves and all that. So it's lighting up in specific spots, but the whole time we're using both sides of the brain. So we're actually doing a full body workout up in our head. So it's one of those things that it makes it the main difference. In the non-musician's brain, they're using one side, either the left or the right. As you can see here, musicians use both sides quite frequently and use both sides just as equal, as the non-musician only uses the left or the right side to process music or to do, because all of us are either analytical or creative. As we move on, the brain at rest is pretty active, because when you're not asked to do things, you're constantly thinking through things, or you may be unaware that your brain controls your heart and tells you to breathe without you even thinking about breathing. And the musician, when exposed to music, the whole thing's functioning at all times. Everything's working to split apart melodies and harmony and put them all back into one as you hear it as one. So if you challenge yourself to think through the music and oh, this part is like this part, but they don't match up, but they're talking back and forth, it forces you to think like a musician would play an instrument. Musician's brain functions three main spots. You have the motor cortex, which controls my left hand and my right arm. So I'm a violinist myself. So I don't even think my hand will move in specific ways. So I know it's an up bow without looking, or down bow. I know when to shift, if it feels uncomfortable, I move in a different place. So my brain just naturally makes me do that. The visual cortex, which controls where my eyes see. So I have to look at the conductor, I'll look up real quick and I'll have the music memorized because I see music this much. And I know what to expect coming up because I can measure ahead. I also use the auditory cortex, which playing in a large symphony, it's very overwhelming, but at the same time, I'm using my motor cortex, my visual cortex, but I also have to listen just as much as I am moving or looking at things. So I hear trumpet over there and I hear harp or bass over there, and I have to listen to all three at the same time, which is overwhelming, but practice makes perfect. So basically all of our brains have connecting tissues which transmit a message to one part of the brain, which will then take it to another part of the body. So some people get super nervous and it automatically sends a message to your gut, which makes you nervous. So your brain really controls everything you do, from feelings to thoughts. Moving on, all of us have a brain that is even on each side, but if you cut it down the middle, you have the right side, which is extremely creative, and the right side is all analytical. Everything has to be planned out for you, and you follow exactly rules. Creativity is the fact that I can express myself however I want and use different thoughts and patterns to figure out a situation. There's not one way to solve one problem. We all have a thing called the corpus callosum, which is basically a bridge. As you can see, it looks like a bridge. So it's in the center of your brain under all the gray matter, which basically connects both sides. So relating back to the musician using both sides at all time, this is the biggest part that is played. So hearing music either has one person being analytical or creative, allowing them to phrase things or know exactly what's happening. But this gland here actually makes sure that my brain on both sides is analytical by seeing music and knowing exactly the precise moments to shift or how to do an up bow or when to look up or when to move or breathe. But it also lets my creativity side send a message to the analytical side. So it's a huge connection system, which makes sure that I'm doing my job and expressing myself, but also being analytical in the situation. As a recap today, we talked about the science behind the musician's brain and the non-musician's brain, how they are different from each other, and how the musician's brain completely functions. Thank you all for joining me today.